Hi, love leaders. It's Dr. Shanon Roberts, your host for the Love Leading podcast, where we discuss how to create connection in your most important relationship that God designed, bringing health and sometimes healing while deepening intimacy. Welcome to the show. Welcome, love leaders, to the Love Leading podcast with Dr. Shanon. Hi, I am your host for the Love Leading podcast, Dr. Shanon Roberts. We are in the Naked and Exposed series, moving on through the book that was released last fall, Naked and Exposed, Learning to Love Well Using the Intimacy for Life method in your marriage. And we are moving to the renewal systems, the things that tend to put guardrails on your relationship, the things that keep it renewed and healthy and in good standing. This is the bucket number 3 that I talk about in my book. If you've missed the other episodes leading up to now, you're going to want to go back and listen, because listen, it builds. The reason why we don't start here in the relationship dynamic restoration process is because there are other things that have eroded the relationship up until this point. We address those things, bucket 1 and bucket 2. So this is bucket 3. And once we have established a healthier communication cycle, renewed ways of navigating conflict and understanding each other's ways of communication and attaching, and why those show up the way they do and how we protest, we are able to build a healthier and safe way of navigating challenges and conflict and those stuck places in the relationship. And then we've gone last episode to clearing through healing conversations so that we can clear out the past and they're not messing with us in the present moment as nearly as much. And so now we're going in and reestablishing those really healthy rhythms that probably you started with in the relationship, that because of these other 2 buckets have slowly eroded and shifted your want to. And so now in the relationship, we have seen, and what I have seen with couples is that their want to has slowly begun to be restored, and that they want to show up in different kinds of ways, and they feel more safe and secure to show up in different kinds of ways. So we have to intentionally go back and reestablish these regular rhythms of the relationship. And so the first one today that I'm going to be talking to you, and there's 4, by the way, is, so the first of the 4 today is a deepened emotional engagement. And listen, I talk to couples all the time, and they say, Shanon, we just don't have time. And I'm going to tell you, I'm going to call a little bit of nope, because listen, it doesn't take a lot of time. It has to be intentional. And emotional engagement is more than the business CEO meeting, that CEO, COO meeting that a lot of couples have to do. It goes beyond just transactional functioning relationship. It even goes on conflict management communication. And I do think every couple needs to have all 3 of those categories of some time, of somewhere, where it's an intentional carved in time and space to have those levels of communication. Whether you're meeting together once a month or once a week, where you are doing like just life management communication, where you're comparing your calendars, where you are navigating functional divide and conquer role divisions, where you're setting home management goals and projects updates, where you're reviewing financial expenditures or vacation planning or goal setting, and you're getting regular updates and of the open active goal setting and those closed goal settings, accomplishments. Those are the CEO, COO kind of communication meetings where it's very transactional, because running a household, running a life, co-parenting, you have assets, you have budgets, you have employees, you have to have business meetings in order to make your household run smoothly. Many of you have regular open staff meetings or open business meetings in your own corporations or companies that you are employed by or run yourself. So why wouldn't you do the same with the most important asset management that you have, your family? And it requires a lot of oxygen and attention to make sure that it runs preventatively well and smoothly, so that we're not on urgent and miscommunication and running to troubleshoot as much as possible. Of course, that's going to happen, but to the point where you try to tackle as much as you can and stay on the same page. And we're not trying to do that via electronic texting or calendar invites, but we are actually spending time face to face, opening up, the action steps maybe from last week, or the financial budgeting, or the planning of things, so that things tend to be less anxiety provoking. And then secondly, sometimes couples just really need to have intentional carved in space where they are returning back to maybe unresolved conflict, because sometimes in the heat of the moment, it gets by us and we don't have the time to sit back down and say, do over, let's revisit. Now that we've had time to kind of think and calm down, can we do that a little bit more intentionally using the new skill set that we've already reviewed? And so making sure that we have just an opportunity where we kind of mentally are prepared to have to take the risk to make very careful, soft protests, that we are prepared in our minds to receive a protest and to be able to do the catch method. So that's the second level of communication, but I'm not talking about those two. Today, I'm talking about where couples develop the ability to show up for one another in a deeper kind of way, where you are my life partner, you are my soft place to fall, but you're also the place where I want to be known and to know. And so emotional engagement really is just opening up, instead of the external transactional conversations about detail exchange and all of those kinds of things. It really is now where we can settle in and we are internally looking at thoughts, emotions, dreams, fears, challenges, and we are sharing things that we wouldn't necessarily share with other people, so that we are carrying with us the carved in knowing and thoughts of one another, that we don't feel alone, that we don't have the sense that they don't have our back. It is also the feeling of my secure base. Like, I am so understood and known that I can go out into this world and carry the thought of my loved one with me, and I know they are there for me, right? So it is taking risks of going deeper, and maybe in areas that you don't do with anybody else. And a lot of couples don't do this because of the other two buckets that have eroded it, but now it's time to reincorporate it. And listen, if it needs to be a bookend of the day. It needs to be a 10-minute exchange, 15-minute exchange. Sometimes you're going to go deeper because it might be that you're doing a stay date. And it does not mean that we are just going on date night. It doesn't mean that we're going to go share a meal. It means that we're intentionally going to share of ourselves. It is a head and heart check-in. What have you been thinking about lately? What have you been feeling lately? And it goes even beyond how was your day? And the other person just exchange, yeah, I had this meeting, I did this errand, I ran into this person. That's all external transactional. It goes beyond just how was your day. It goes to the next level of what was the best part of your day? What was the most challenging part of your day? Right? And it is a fine art to draw this out in one another. So here's a couple of things that I want to offer you. Take the last couple of words, 2 or 3. Here's a secret. 2 or 3 words of what your partner has just said. Repeat them back and put a question mark on it. So if you say, well, what was the best part of your day? Oh my goodness, I had a win today with this company in my conversation. So you just repeat back, win today, so that they go a little bit deeper. Yeah, I had pitched this thing 2 weeks ago. I hadn't heard back, but I heard back today, and they're interested in the next step of the project proposal. And then you get to celebrate. That's fantastic. How did that feel? So you go into emotions, right? So you're deepening the conversation and being able so that you use that skill set to want more. Or you ask curious questions. And remember, curious questions are to understand better. Why did that feel so successful? Well, I have never pitched before in this area, and they seem complimentary with, what they said is the reason why they came back to us. And then you get to ask even a deeper question. Well, what did you do different in your pitch that maybe someone else might not have? What did they give you information? So you're asking curious questions to go deeper, to let them share. And so then you can also use the validation and the step of, good for you, that must have felt really great, I'm so proud, right? And so you become each other's cheerleaders in life. That's the soft place to fall. Or even tolerating space of, my biggest challenge is we didn't get that proposal. We didn't have an acceptance of the pitch. And then we get to empathize. That sucks. So they're not sharing the burden of life alone. Or vice versa. Yeah, I had the biggest meltdown with the kids today, and then the partner is able to say, yeah, I hate it when that happens, right? Because anytime that we can say things that take a risk, that seem vulnerably raw, and someone comes up with yeah, I get it, me too. It is like a balm on someone's heart. So learning that fine art of being each other's biggest cheerleader and softest place to fall is what I'm talking about. So here are some suggestions that I'm going to continue to share. Ask your partner about their thoughts, feelings, or experiences on a topic that is important to both of you. And it's not asked in a way that can be answered in just a one word. It's an open-ended question. And we have got to learn how to say, did you is always going to be answered with a yes or no. Why is always going to sound like now I have to be on a defense. But if we use words where help me to understand, or tell me more, or share with me, these are all open ways of hoping that they will elaborate more greatly. And listen, one person in the relationship has a greater need for open sharing than the other. And so instead of being upset or taking offense that one person might not be as open as the other, take time to help develop these skill sets for the other. Help them by initiating and going deeper and accepting what they're able to give for today. And it will continue to get better, especially as you're carving in these bookends 10 to 15 minutes most nights of the week. And that means maybe you just decide that when the kids are in bed or when they're occupied or before everyone goes to their kind of separate corners of maybe getting back to a little bit more work before going to bed or wanting to do their hobby or seeing their particular show or even turning on conjointly the Netflix episode, that we put electronics down for those 10 or 15 minutes and just do that head and heart check-in. Don't make it linger or last long, because that will be defeating to the other person that's feeling like they really just need a time to take a deep breath and veg out. So it doesn't have to be like earth-shattering deep. It doesn't have to be long periods of time. It just is a bookend of a check-in. How are you doing today? Share your emotions and invite your partner to do the same. Express how you feel about a particular situation or aspect of your relationship. Making sure that you're leaving room and space for each one to take a turn, and we're validating and empathizing and celebrating and curiously observing. You can go down nostalgic lane, discuss a cherished memory, maybe a trigger of, those Google pictures that come on your phone, like, oh my gosh, do you remember this picture of 5 years ago on this day? We were back in, can you believe that? Look how big the kids have gotten, or look how far we've come in our goals, because we discussed on that day how we were going to like do this, and here we are doing this, So discuss kind of a cherished thought or a memory. Discuss your ups and downs of your day. I talked about that. Talk about the challenges. Talk about the victories. Express that empathy and support of one another, offering encouragement and validation. And celebrate each other's successes, become each other's biggest cheerleaders, knowing and telling, using words, not just they should know. Of course, I feel that way. No, using words often that remind them that you are in their corner. And that will only catapult the desire and the willingness to want to even take this further. And that intimacy then begins to compound on itself. And the relationship bowling ball starts rolling the other direction now, because now we're feeding the safety and security of the relation, not trying to earn back the safety and security of the relationship. So that is the first step in the Intimacy for Life method, as we are entering into these last few chapters and the third bucket, after having already tackled bucket number 1 and bucket number 2, is going deeper, creating more intimate attachment, bonding, the rhythms that allow us to think that we are connected beyond just co-partnership and transactional interaction, parallel lives, creating those rhythms where it can happen and how to have it happen. So this is Dr. Shanon with the Love Leading Podcast. If you like what you heard today, please subscribe and share it with your persons in your environments and communities. And make sure that you come back next week as we go into the other 3 levels of the Intimacy for Life method. See you next week. Go learn how to love well.